Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Penny and this is Little by Little. We're going to continue on in the dining slash living room of the homestead house today. And so in this video, we're going to be creating a hutch that sat beside the piano. Now, a lot of people could probably use this piece as a dresser. It may have originally been intended as a dresser, but in this house, it was used more as a hutch or a place for extra storage. So in the drawers, Grandma kept things like extra linens, her never ending supply of doilies, which were everywhere in the house, and probably some special items that she would put away, especially when us kids came to visit. And that may have included a special teacup and saucer or something along those lines. Now, there's also a story in our family about how when my dad and his siblings were born, there was either no room or no funds available to have a crib for the babies. Remember that this was a very tiny one-bedroom house. And so my dad tells me that all of the babies slept in a drawer. And I think that was probably pretty common for the time. Now, I'm not 100% sure that it was this particular cabinet or hutch that the drawer was used, but I suspect it probably was. So the idea that my dad may have slept in the bottom drawer of this piece makes it just a little bit more fun to build. So as always, you'll find your cutting instructions in the description below. We'll have a quick peek at the materials and the tools that you'll need, and then we'll get started. For this project, I used about 1.5 sheets of this 1/16 of an inch chipboard. You can use wood if you wish, as long as it's the same thickness, the measurements will still work for you. You'll also, of course, need a ruler, your X-Acto knife, a nice sharp pencil, something to sand with, whether that be sandpaper or an emery board or a combination of both. You'll need some glue, you'll need some paint to paint the project, and of course a paintbrush. And I use some Mod Podge to seal the project. That's completely optional. You can choose to do that or not do that. It's up to you. And then you'll need something for handles for the drawers. Now, in my project, I just want very small little round handles. So I found these very inexpensive glass beads at a dollar store, and I'm just going to use those and paint them the same color as the cabinet. If you don't want to use beads or something round, you can use whatever style of handle you want to use. The choice is yours. Having looked at all that, let's get started on this project. I'll get you to pull out one of your piece A and both of your pieces marked piece B. So this is the back of the unit and the two side pieces. And we're going to start by drawing some guidelines for the shelves that will go in that will hold the drawers up. So place them with your back piece in the middle. And if you want, you can put a little piece of painter's tape across so that you keep it kind of all one unit. But here's what our measurements are going to be. We're going to make pencil marks starting from the top and working our way down. So our first mark will be from the top down, we're going to go 8 millimeters. Our second line will be drawn at 37 millimeters. So that's 37 millimeters from the top down, not from this first line down. Our third line is going to be at 65 millimeters from the top. And if you do that on all three pieces and then draw your lines across, that will help you later when we go to put it together. So I'm just going to move my side pieces off to the side for now, because there's one more measurement that you'll need to make on the back piece. And so what I've done in between your first line and your second line, you'll need to measure across from the left, going over 55 millimeters and then 58 millimeters. And then you'll do that on this line as well and join those lines together. So we're going to bring in now the other piece A. So this is your front piece. And we're going to do the following measurements on this piece. So the first thing I'd like you to do is to make a border around the inside of the edges. So on the two side edges, so your longer side is going to be up top. So on your two side edges, I'd like you to make a border of 5 millimeters in. You can do that both sides, and then also do a 5 millimeter border along the bottom. On the top of this piece, your border is going to be a little bit wider. You'll want to make your border 8 millimeters on the top. So I would just go in, once you've measured that, and just make a square on the inside. We can erase lines that we don't need afterwards. So once you've drawn that box, we'll start at the top, working our way down. Of course, your first line is the 8 millimeters, which you should have already drawn. The next line will be at 37 millimeters, and again, that's 37 millimeters from the top down to that line. Then at 41 millimeters, at 65 millimeters, and at 69 millimeters. And then your bottom line, which is already part of your border, should be at 93 millimeters from the top. Once you've joined those lines across, we have one more measurement to make here. On your top line, which is the 8 millimeter, and the second line, which is the 37 millimeter, you're going to measure across from the left edge over 55 millimeters and then 58 millimeters. And you can do that on both of those lines and then join those as well. We have one more piece that we're going to mark, and that is one of your shelf pieces. So that is piece C, and you only need to do this on one of those pieces. So on your shelf from left to right, you'll need to make a measurement at 53.5 millimeters and 56.5 millimeters. Do that on the top and the bottom, and then join those lines together. I know it seems like a lot, but I promise you, when you're adding in shelves and dividers, it's so much easier to make sure that your shelves are straight and level and even if you've marked those lines ahead of time. So let's bring back our three original pieces, which is the back piece, which is piece A, and your two side pieces. And we're going to start gluing these together. So these pieces, these side pieces, are going to sit on top of piece A. So let's put glue on just one side of your side piece. I'm just using regular craft glue. And we'll just stand this up on top right against the edge. And I like to use my blocks to make sure that everything is flush and straight and at a 90-degree angle. And then we'll do the same to the other side. Now, in case you're wondering why I'm using chipboard for this project, because I know if you've been watching my channel, you probably have seen that almost all of the furniture that I've made out of wood. There's a couple of exceptions. The reason that I decided to go with chipboard for this one is because this piece had just a really heavy paint job on it. And while I love furniture with a nice wood grain, this particular piece of furniture didn't have that. So it seemed to me like a bit of a waste to be using very expensive wood for something that I was going to paint over and you would never know it was wood when I was done. So that's why I opted to do chipboard for this particular piece. At the end of the day, no one will ever know that it's chipboard under there and not wood, but I'll have saved myself a little bit of money. I just want to get rid of some of this glue residue so it doesn't affect my shelves when I go to put it in. You can go ahead and bring in all four of your pieces marked C. So these are your shelves, as well as the top and bottom of the unit. So we've already marked that one off as a divider. So we'll put that one aside and we'll just use a different one. And so that's going to glue in. It's actually going to sit inside of this frame and on top of the back. So it should sit in between your two sides and on top of your back piece. So we're going to apply glue to three sides and place that piece in. So I'm also going to glue in the other two shelves. So you should have two more pieces plus the one that you've marked. So we're going to put in one here, and then we'll put the one that we've marked with the divider, we'll put that one under the top so that it matches the lines on the back of the unit. And again, we're going to use these guides that we've drawn on here to make sure that the shelves sit in there nice and straight. Before we put the last shelf in, I want to put in this little vertical divider. So you should have two pieces marked E, and we're actually going to glue them together so that they're double thickness. Make sure all your edges are flush. And then I'm just going to clamp those together so that they dry nice and flat and straight. So this is going to sit right where you've drawn those lines from the top to the bottom. And then the last shelf, which will go on the top. So we're going to put glue on three sides, and then we're also going to put glue on the top of that divider. Let's put this aside for a bit, and we're going to work on the front piece. But what we'll need to do now is cut out all of the spaces where the drawers will go in. So that's basically four pieces. So the top two squares up here, and then these two here. So I'm just going to be using my X-Acto knife, and I'm just going to very carefully, with a straight edge, start going through and cutting out these little squares. And you can just go lightly. Once you've done it once or twice, your blade should follow the same path each time. And I'm just going to very carefully, it takes about 3 or 4 swipes to get all the way through to the bottom. But just be careful that you're not going over the lines that you've drawn, because the last thing we want to do is cut those frames apart. We'll do that to all 4 of those openings. So let's bring back the main piece. And now this is going to glue right directly on top. And it should cover all of those shelves. Now, if you have gone off by a tiny amount, like I have here, you can see that the top of the shelf shows a little bit. It's okay because the fronts of those drawers are going to overlap a little bit on all 4 sides. So you should be able to cover some minor measuring errors. So I'm going to add glue now to the entire top surface of this piece, and we'll attach this one onto it. So we have to do this really quickly because the glue will dry very quickly. So here we go. Might even want to put it on a little thicker than you normally would, just so that it doesn't dry too fast. All right, making sure that your wider piece is at the top. And I'm going to use my blocks to put that on just to make sure that it dries nice and flat and it doesn't warp on us. If you don't have these blocks, if you have a nice big book, a nice big heavy book, that will work as well. And we'll just leave it there until it's all nice. So you'll notice in the cutting instructions that I did not provide the cutting measurements for the drawers themselves. And I did that on purpose because I find that it's far easier to measure the drawers when you get to this stage than it is to try and cut them ahead of time. You'll get a far more accurate measurement if you do it at this point. So here's basically how I measured out those pieces. So you'll need 4 pieces for the drawer plus the front. So you'll need a bottom, the back, and the 2 sides. So we'll start with the bottom. So your bottom piece will be basically the distance across the front of your opening. So this is 51 millimeters. I would take 2 millimeters off of that distance. So in this case, as I said, it's 51 millimeters. I would make your bottom piece 49 millimeters. And then the distance from the front to the back, because my drawers will go all the way to the back. So the distance going the other direction is the width of your side piece, which is 38 millimeters, plus the width of the front. So that will be 39.5 millimeters. So 49 by 39.5 millimeters will give you the size of your drawer bottom. On top of that will be your back piece. So you can measure your back piece will be the same width as the bottom. So again, this is 49 millimeters, then this will be 49 millimeters as well. For the height of this, measure up the side. So measure the height of your drawer. And in this case, we are at 29 millimeters, and take 3 millimeters off of that measurement. That will give you enough room for the width of your drawer bottom, plus about 1.5 millimeters of clearance in between the top of the drawer and the top of your cabinet. So you'll need to cut one of those. And then your side pieces are going to be the same height as your back piece. And the width of it will be the exact same size as your side panel, not including the width of the front or the back. So this piece was 38 millimeters, and so that's how long you'll make your side pieces. And if you do that for each of the spaces that you have, your drawer should fit quite well. All right, so we're going to put this drawer together. I'm going to start by gluing the back piece on to the bottom. Everything is going to sit on top of the bottom piece. So we'll put some glue on the bottom of our back piece. Make sure it's flush on both sides. And then we'll go ahead and add these side pieces. So these side pieces are going to sit again on top of the bottom piece and will sit back against the back. So glue on two sides, one long and one short. And then we'll put this side in as well. Okay, I'm just going to try it to make sure it fits. Great, and as you can see, I've left that extra room so it slides in very easily. Okay, so let's do that for the other three spaces, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the drawer fronts. Before we attach the drawer fronts, I'm going to take a little bit of the sharp edge off of the top. I just feel like it looks too boxy. So I can do that with an emery board or with a piece of sandpaper. So I'm just going to run that at about a 45-degree angle all the way across. And I'll do that all the way around all four sides. So putting the front of the drawers on, I really want to be careful that they're all nice and straight and evenly spaced. And it's really hard to do that if you take the drawers out and try and line them up somehow, because they never really sit in there flat or perfectly square. So what I like to do, and this is one of the reasons why I brought the edge of the drawer itself right to the surface of this unit, is I like to put the drawer back in and put my glue carefully so that you're not gluing the drawer to the unit, but run a bead of glue along the top edge. And then once the glue is applied, then I'll take my drawer front and I'll line it up where I want it to sit on the front of the dresser. Just going to hold that for a second to give the rest of the drawer a second to hold on to that. And then I'm carefully going to lift that out of there. Clean up that extra glue. I'm also going to clean up this glue here because we shouldn't want the dresser drawer to stick to the dresser itself. There's very little there, but just a tiny little speck. And then I'm going to put that back in because I'm going to use now where this drawer is as a guide for where to place the drawer on top of it. So again, we're going to put glue on the insert there. So you can see now by using this method that you can really line your drawer fronts up nicely. All right, I'm going to put the top piece on now, and I'm going to do the same thing to this piece that I did with the front of the drawers. And I'm going to bevel down a little bit one of the edges on 3 sides. So let's do that first. If you have a piece where one side is better than the other, for example, in this one I've written on this side and not on this one. So this is the good side. We want the good side to be on top, and so I want to do the beveling on the bottom of that. All right, so I beveled down the 2 shorter ends plus 1 long side, and that beveled part is going to go on the bottom of that piece. So when you glue this top piece on, we want to make it flush with the back of the dresser, and then you'll see that there'll be a small overhang on each side plus on the front. Put that up so you can see that. So go ahead and glue that on. You'll just need to put glue on all 4 sides there. Now you'll definitely want to hold that down until it's dry because you don't want that to start warping on you. I'm going to use my blocks. Okay, and we'll give that some time to dry. Okay, I found these little brown beads. I'm going to use these for handles. I've already tested and I am able to paint them. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue them onto the front of the dresser drawers. And I have just gone in and measured halfway between these 2 points and then halfway between those 2 points. So I've got the middle of the drawer, and then I'll use that same distance from the edge on both of these drawers as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and just pop some glue dots down on there. All right, we'll let those dry for a couple of minutes and then we'll start applying some paint. Self, I started with a coat of matte podge just to seal everything up. And then it took 4 coats of paint to get that smooth finish that doesn't have any kind of streaks in it. And then after the 4 coats of paint, I put 1 more coat of podge just to seal it and to protect everything. So as you can see, the drawers all open still quite nicely. I did want to show you one thing. This is something that I discovered after I kind of had it all together. Just a little bit of a flaw in my design. When I cut this piece for the front, I forgot that I needed a shelf to hold this drawer even. So rather than trying to install a shelf now, what I did was I just took some scrap pieces of chipboard and I just cut 3 pieces, and it's about maybe a half an inch by an inch. I glued those 3 together all on top of each other, and then I glued it into the bottom here. And it's just enough support so that when you put that bottom drawer in, it doesn't fall backwards. The other thing that you can do if you like is you can add feet to the bottom if you wish. I'm not going to on this piece. I don't remember if the original piece had legs on it or not, but I've decided not to add legs onto this one. That brings us to the end of this tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed it. I quite like working with the chipboard. I might do a little bit more of the chipboard at a later date. As much as I love the wood, I did find this was very easy to work with, especially with this front piece that needed to be cut the way it was. So thanks very much for joining me. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.